Hey, Richard.
Hi, Trina. Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, all good. I just wanted to get started just to see if everything works. I'm just trying to see where I can find the polls.
I've started the webinar, so I don't know whether that's the right thing to do, but
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we might want to stop recording right now, though. Just wait until people, because this is going to get put on the website too.
Cool. Okay, great stuff. So we'll go ahead and start now, yeah? Okay, so I wanted to just thank you guys for coming to this webinar, and this pairing up with Tricentis. I mean, the first thing I suppose is that we're here to discuss the subject of accelerate and de-risk your now either S/4HANA or ECC transformation projects. Obviously transforming from ECC to HANA, that's one, but also as well this will work with ECC as well, so just to bear that in mind. Okay, so I mean I'm Brett Robinson, so IDS, the partnership with Tricentis we have on this, IDS is a young dynamic software quality assurance organization. We focus on delivering assurance so progress can begin for our customers through efficient testing solutions. That's what we provide. And the opportunity with Tricentis is extremely exciting, as these two organizations, our values are aligned with the SAP space. And today we're excited to talk about one of the coolest offerings is LiveCompare. So we have two polls as well I'd like to mention at the beginning. So participate in those. There's only two questions. And then near the end, we'll cover those off. I'm joined today with my co-host, Richard Hurst, who is a solution architect with Tricentis and specializes in helping SAP customers accelerate their change projects and use, with the use of smart software is what we're talking about today. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Brett, and thanks for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to introduce Brett. Brett is, well, you can already tell from his experiences, he's been doing SAP change projects for a long time. So very experienced test manager, and has been working on both ECC and HANA and S4 HANA. And I think he really understands the pressures that customers face when delivering any kind of change project. So I'm going to kind of kick this right off and kind of, Brett, what's the biggest issue that you face when you go into a new customer? What's the thing that you keeps you awake at night, if you like, about when you go into one of these new projects and you need to start testing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Richard. The biggest thing for me when I usually hit the ground is knowing, because SAP is such a massive monster of a software platform. It's knowing, what to test, where to test, who's involved in this. It's all the I suppose the 50,000 foot view of trying to look down and see, okay, what do I need to do? Where do I need to direct myself? And that is kind of a huge worry for me. Is first that starting kickoff, if you like. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess if you don't get that information from the customer, or you get limited information, I'm guessing you go in and they're putting, they're saying, we've got to deliver this on time and those types of things. So how can that affect the project if you don't get that information?
Yeah, sure. At first you might start off with like, okay, I got 3,000 test script in my head as the go-to safety net. We'll cover everything. We'll just test it to death. Sort of regression test, regression pack, the whole thing. And I suppose that's the key area, is then starting to try and drive that down to get that reduced, because you're time boxed to a certain amount of time, 4 months for sit, 4 weeks for sit, 4 weeks for UAT, something like that. And you don't get a lot of time, and you always have the project manager coming to you saying, can you shave a week off? Can you not do UAT? All those sorts of spurious questions. And, so that kind of is to try and understand the business processes and try and understand how I can now start to minimize that testing.
Okay. And obviously, if you do that, then I guess there's an element of, you may introduce some risk, because you may I guess, missed something, or you may be struggling for getting business users to help you with all the testing, what can be the consequence of that?
Yeah, sure. And that's always the thing as well. If you're going to something like ECC to HANA, you know, there's a lot of things that have gone. Tables have gone. They've been, you know, taken out and reduced. You know, so it's also getting the users trained on that platform, because it mostly operates through Fury now. S4 HANA, I like the whole sort of suite. Not just the database backend, because some people are on ECC HANA as well, the backend.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's those elements to consider, and having a more precise science would be ideal, to know exactly where I can start looking and start making some you know, calculations and adjustments of what testing to do.
Okay. And have you ever got into a situation where you know, maybe something unfortunately does get missed, and that ends up with an issue in production, maybe, and what can be the, you know, if that happens, what can be the I guess the consequence or the risk to the business if that happens?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're moving into a web, mostly web front end storefronts now, instead of, you know, actual physical storefronts and footfall of customers. And I think what's really, really important is making sure we test all those things. And I've been on projects where we'll test everything, and the users haven't put in to run a month end or to run a year end, just to check to make sure everything works, because you will promote that in and be in production, and then no one will ever think of it until they run the month end, and then all of a sudden it goes pop. And then, you know, or there might be a payment gateway you missed, or a payment type card you may have missed. And these can be really critical, because if the business starts losing money, orders, and of course reputation, like I said, right, it's not about your shop storefront now, it's about your web storefront. And if you start losing reputation, you will start losing repeat customers and repeat business, and that's critical. You need to know that you've tested it, at least the critical business processes. And how are you to know that when SAP is such a massive monster, and you need everything feeds into everything, from all the way from creating a vendor all the way through to, you know, delivering an order, or indeed reporting on what you sold. That all is connected, right? And it's difficult to see into that monster as to, you know, what to test.
Sure, sure. And I guess if that does happen, that could even have an impact on the next release that's coming along. I know with, you know, S4 that there's more pressure to do releases quicker, and the business want the new functionality quicker. But if you end up with defects in production, I guess that can slow the whole process down, right? Because maybe you're in a hypercare phase that goes on longer than you expected, and then the next release gets delayed. And so it becomes a bit of a vicious circle if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, SAP in their ultimate wisdom, and probably rightly so, they've said, right, we're going to control. If you're in the HEC, right, which the HEC, for those of you who may not know, is the SAP cloud. Okay, so if you're on the HEC in Germany, you know, they'll want to keep you up to date with all the security patches. As we know with ECC, we've had all these security patches and updates. You know, the HEC are going to want to keep you good. If they're going to maintain and look after you and support you in the HEC, they need to make sure that you've got the right releases on there and you stay current and stay up to date. If you're on premise, it's a little bit like ECC. You can you're a little bit more at freedom with that. But again, you know, like Richard said, there's so many changes coming through. There's Fury changes, there's UI changes, there's database changes, you know, and they release quarterly. Pretty much. So, and some of the UI and Fury stuff, they release monthly, right? So how are you gonna, you know, as a test manager, how are you gonna keep up with all this? You know, that's another huge worry, is how am I gonna stay, you know, up to date, or know I'm up to date? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Some good points there. Can I share some stats with you?
Yeah, please.
On here. So on this slide here, you can see this is basically taken from a whole bunch of Tricentis customers that are using SAP, and on average, you know, they're using just over 3,000 different different objects, if you like, or testable objects in their production systems. So these are, you know, in the past, these were always transactions, but you already mentioned as people are moving to S4, it's now not just about transactions. There's Fiori apps, there's more APIs being built. So all of those things really, you know, determine what's being used in the system. So if you were looking at that as a test manager, Brett, I mean, you know, if somebody said, well, you've got to test, you know, 3,000 or so different things, which would give me 100% coverage, right? That would probably make sure that if I tested everything, that I wouldn't get any issues in production. But testing all that when you've got limited time is, I guess that's going to be a hard task, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because now all of a sudden, if I'm in a time box window of 4 weeks of sit, I mean, there's no way I could cover that unless, okay, you know, this is where we get into the ROI, and this is where we get into the benefits for the business in the fact that, okay, so you need how many testers to test this, to test all those test scripts? Or if you're not using automation, yeah, I'm going to need quite a lot of people to actually run through this. Then it becomes a management overhead and so many people taken from their day jobs. So the return on investment, you know, the amount of money you're going to have to spend to do that is going to be immense, you know, because now we're talking about 100 people to run 20 scripts a week, you know, with their day job. You know, and how that all calculates out, that's going to be, you know, a good couple of months just to get that. So that's not, no, that's not possible, really.
So if you take the same information, you actually look at a change that's coming along, you can see that actually in this example, around about 80% of those things that are being used in production are actually impacted by the change that's coming along. And this could be both custom and standard. So with this, there is a reduction, but I still feel that, you know, there's still a lot of things that you would need to test to get through this.
Yeah, this is my initial probably going through the requirements and going through the actual business processes, the change, if you like, that's on the table. And this is where I can start now minimizing what's required. You know, first off is the first kickoff meeting. Okay, how many scripts you think? Well, okay, finger in the air. Next one is now a little bit more analysis, but still quite heavy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think where we come in, I think, with our change impact analysis tool that you mentioned right at the beginning, is we can take, or the product can take those things that are impacted and reduce it down to these things that we call the most at risk.
Wow. Yeah.
And the idea of that is you become much more efficient in your testing, and of course now you're, you know, vastly reduce the amount of testing you're doing, but you are, I would say, increasing the quality of the test because you're testing exactly the right things. And this is where we see customers save, you know, on average about 85% of their testing time as they go through this and they start using this product.
That would be brilliant. I mean, you know, I'd like to see this sort of how do we get to that? How does this work, Richard?
Okay. So, yeah.
Breaking up a bit, Richard.
That have come from the transports that you're implementing.
Right.
These can be any types of transport. So they could be the transports from SAP, they could be support packs, they could be, you know, could even be an S/4HANA upgrade. So any type of change, and even your custom changes that are coming along. So they're picked up from the transport. In parallel to that, we're also monitoring the production environment. So all the usage data that's being used by your end users are captured as well. So that goes into the mix, and that really then drives this most at risk analysis that the product does. And that's, once you've got that, you can start, you know, you can basically start testing with it. And I think, you know, the big advantage of this is it's not long to implement. You can put this change impact analysis tool into your environment, and within a day, 2 days maximum, you can really start getting the results. It's a very quick implementation. that this does.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously with this, now I suppose we have a report or something we can now look at to see what that looks like.
Yeah. So this is the dashboard. Are you seeing the dashboard, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. This is the first dashboard that comes out. So this is a heat map, if you like. It really shows you by module. You know, so here I can see finance. So you already mentioned the month end. You can see in here if there were some month end critical things that you would need to test. The blue tiles, those are the things that are most at risk, the things that you should focus on. And the grey ones are impacted. So even here you can get an idea of, well, maybe, you know, these are the impacted ones as well. We can maybe look at some of those as well, but let's really focus on the blue ones, the most at risk. The size of the tile is determined by how many times this was used in our production system. So again, you know, from your point of view, that this would, I think, at least give you a high level view of where you need to focus your testing after you've run the impact analysis.
Yeah, I mean, as a SAD SAP test manager, I know quite a lot of these transactions, FBLN, 5N, and, you know, a lot of these finance things, and you can sort of start seeing, oh, okay, I need to run MyGo. Okay, yeah, okay. There's a lot of things in here. This tells me a lot already, but it'd be nice to sort of delve into that now and just see what else I can get.
Okay. So, yeah, perfect. So in here you can basically drill down into the next level. And here I get a much better idea of, I guess, where we need to focus our testing in terms of the reduction first.
Yep.
This is like that first slide I showed, where it shows you what's being used, what's impacted, and the most important thing, what's most at risk. These most at risk things that we've recommended to be tested actually get pushed into our test repository. So if you're running Tosca or some other tools, change impact analysis can scan those particular test repositories to find out where you've got test coverage. So the ones that are listed here, the 41, that means I've got test cases for those. I can go and test those right now, which is fantastic. You know, it's accelerating the speed again to deliver these changes or deliver the testing. The gaps, I think, you know, are just as important. In fact, be more important, because now I know when right at the start of this implementation, I know what test coverage I've got and where I haven't got tests, and then we can plan for that and decide how we're going to test them as we go through the release.
Yeah, this is brilliant. This is time saving, because often I go on site and say, okay, where's your test scripts? Well, they're kind of in spreadsheets and they're kind of over here and some are over there. And if they have a tool, this would be great, because then at least now I can start, okay, so what 70 do I need to develop? So yeah, so can I see, do you have that view? That, okay, now here's what you need to, here's the drill down, if you like.
Of course we do, yes, yeah. So this all comes out in the Excel spreadsheet. This dashboard, you can see here you've got the same dashboard as you just saw in the product itself. So the other thing I like about this is everything is nicely contained in Excel. You can email this to your test team or whoever needs it. You know, they've got all the information nicely summarized in the Excel in one file.
Good.
One thing I just wanted to mention here as well, that we've got coverage by type. So here, you know, we've got transaction codes. I wanted to point out things like the web applications, these WAPA objects. Those are the things that link our Fiori apps from the back, you know, from the front end Fiori to the back end S4 system. So this is covering, you know, not just transaction codes, but those objects as well as RFC calls. So those are typically APIs that are coming in from other applications. I
like the changing object summary as well, because that tells me that my config. So if I have an SI partner doing the config, I know that there's some config there, and I can make sure that that's directed appropriately, whether I'm running waterfall or agile, especially in sprints, and data as well. That's quite key. And then the ABAP, that's quite interesting. It's like, whoa, okay, you got a lot of ABAP stuff here. That's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And as we go along the spreadsheet, you now get into much more detail about the object that we need to test. So there's some transactions here, some programs. There's custom and standard as well.
Yeah. So everything Z in SAP world is customized, and then I suppose impact, that column looks interesting. So is that the actual impacted objects?
Yep. So in here, yeah, you can start to drill through and drill down and look at more detail if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So in column E, for instance, we can see that VA01 is most at risk.
Yeah, sales order.
The reason it's most at risk is there are 11 objects that were changed as part of this release. So you can see the change ID here, or the transport that happens to be an enhancement pack here from SAP, as well as some of our own transports as well.
Wow, this is helpful. Yeah.
And then I can see the individual objects that we changed.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to, I can actually drill down and look at the ABAP code here, see where that's changed.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is good. I haven't seen this before. I like this.
And yeah, I think this is key when you're doing things like support packs or maybe even an S4 upgrade, because if your custom code is using some standard objects that SAP have changed, then your developers need to know about that, because obviously you've got to test it, but you also probably need to do some development work, some remediation to work with the new parameters that's in the function or something like that.
Yeah, we saw in this one is 460 odd ABAP changes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yes, yeah. You picked up on a minute ago, you said data is important when you were looking at those configuration.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of configuration was changed. And again, if I click on here, we get a slightly different view, because now I start to see the data that was changed in the transport based on the key fields that were changed in the IMG, for instance, here in the configuration area. And we can see here, as an example, we've changed the description of the sales order.
Mm-hmm.
So we might want to look at testing the ZIN order. We changed some information around the sales organization as well. So, again, from your point of view, how would having this data is that useful to you as well?
Yeah, very. I mean, the sales org, especially, that's really key, because that may mean that different company codes, different cost centers, profit centers, maybe the chart of accounts. This tells me a lot just by looking at that one little thing. As a test manager and having experience in this field, I can now see, whoa, okay, I know what that's going to impact just from experience. But this is good seeing it in black and white, or, well, nice colors.
Okay.
So, okay, I suppose, so back at that home one, so now I'm looking at column F, and I'm worried because I don't have any test hits in there.
Right, yeah. So again, I think you saw on the dashboard the hits and gaps, the test coverage.
Yep.
That is really shown in column F. So anything with a number in means we've got test hits in our test repository. It's great. We can go and create test executions or test labs based on that information. But the ones that don't have a number in, those are the gaps in our process. So VA11, for instance, there's no test case for that.
Yeah, and ZE23N, there's none for that, and yet it gets used 2 million. It's been used 2 million times. It's like, right. What? Yes. I have no test scripts covering that. Why? That's kind of worrying. Yep.
Again, if you want to look at the hits, you can double click on this, and it takes you to the information about the test hits.
Okay.
This is coming back from Tosca, but yeah, it could be ALM as well. So other test tools are supported. And just to point out here, we saw the data change in the configuration. You'll see here that there's a flag in column E that says has data.
Okay.
So those, if you remember the configuration, we changed the EMEA order and we did some company code changes around the Asia Pac and geography. So actually those would be the two things we could test. The US one, even though it's got VA01 in the test case, it's not actually impacted by the change, or the data hasn't changed. So.
Yeah, maybe a regression test against that anyway, but yeah, that's good. Because I know people on this call, if you have SAP installations, you'll know full well that when you get SAP notes, they come in and it's like, oh, these country changes that don't pertain to me, but it may pertain to you. And this will help point out some of those changes and where they apply to, which part of your business. Cool, I like that. Wicked. So back to home, I suppose now for me is when I don't see any test scripts, I also see in column H, I've got how many users and then who are the users. So what can I gain from that? I mean, obviously.
It's a good point. Yeah, column H shows you how many users that have used this particular transaction in the business. The top user, so that's the person who's run it more times than anybody else. And again, if like the others, I can click on this and it takes me to a sheet that shows me all of the users. Obviously, the count here is top to bottom. So the idea here is if you are going to do automation or you need some help building these gaps up, those top 5 or 6 people are probably these are going to be the experts, the ones that use it more than anybody else in the business. So these are good people to go to get an understanding of how to test this or how they use the transaction on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and as a company, this would point me quite clearly to what I need to automate from my CI environment if I have one, or to have running automation every hour or every couple of hours. So I make sure that none of those processes with the heavy use are broken, and I would automate those. Me as a test manager, I would say, look, you need to automate these things because these are core processes. So any new build we throw at it, any new upgrade we throw at it, we can have that running in the test environment saying, yeah, it's not broken. Okay, cool. So that's good. Excellent. Okay, cool. So I know who to go to now to say, hey, what test script should I do for this? What data should I use?
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen customers who've taken this and they, you can change the report slightly. So they've added, for instance, the company code onto the user or the user group onto the user. So that gives them even more, information about where to go and test. So is it a particular company code they want to test more of?
Wicked. Yes. Yeah.
There is there is the flexibility to change things in here if you want to as well.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask, can I pick up things like that? Because that would be even better. Because often what I get as test manager, I'll get in and the developer says, oh, I said, what data did you use? Oh, I just created my own. What? Hang on a second. Yeah, because we don't have data yet from the business. So we're just getting by. And the test team as well do the same. I'm like, oh, what company code are you using? Oh, just UK. Well, we're testing Europe. That's not going to fly.
No. So yeah, getting this extra information is, by the sounds of it, would be key to driving things.
Cool.
So I think that's the kind of report in a nutshell that you get from the impact analysis. And if you're whether you're doing small changes, big changes, or a full S4 HANA upgrade, it's still using the same technology to do this, to come up with the most at risk. If you are thinking of going to S4 and you're thinking about migration, there is a kind of a bigger analysis that we can do, which is looking, a full system comparison, if you like, not just looking at testing, but it also looks at development, testing, training, and integration as well. So where you've got interfaces and things like that. how those would be affected by the migration.
So you're gonna have, when you go from ECC to HANA, you're gonna have asset accounting changing, you're gonna have materials management changing, and you're gonna need to get those in line and sorted. And not to mention the reduction of tables like AC DOCA and finance, for instance. All your purchasing and sales is now crammed into one table called AC DOCA. And there's 458 plus fields in there. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we got rid of some tables, but we shoved them all into one. So it's, oh man, yeah, that's going to be fun.
Again, if you were looking at your custom code, if it was using the old tables,
yes,
and now you need to remediate that to use the new table, that would be highlighted in the report, like you saw a second ago, where you can drill down and see where the changes are.
Good, good. Wow, cool. So
kind of just to sort of summarize, really, this is where we see, how it would fit into your process. We've got the change coming along. We run the impact analysis. Obviously, then that feeds into your testing. And as we are testing, very focused testing and testing the things that are most at risk, when we go through the release, we want to achieve those 0 defects. Because if we do that, then all those things you mentioned at the start, those are, those go away, if you like.
yeah,
we're more efficient. I don't know if you want to, how that sounds, if you can, add some comments around that, Brett, what you think?
Yeah, I suppose, that's where we can, the IDS part can help and get this sort of all implemented and get that in progress. And I think the main thing for, businesses nowadays is to, how do I get started? Where do I start? How do I get this under control? And this, this is very, a very good tool that's going to help keep things organized and keep you on top of what's changing. That heat map alone, I mean, that is a godsend for me, because it shows me exactly what objects are changing. And then development will know, oh, we've customized that. Well, you'll know because there'll be a Z in front of it. We've customized that transaction code. And you'll know that there's definitely some ABAP changes to be had there. And this kind of points it out, because I'm often asked, as a test manager, right, how much testing do you think we need to do? Finger in the air, 8 people, 2 months, 8 weeks, 2 people, that's kind of finger in the air, and now this gets it down to, yeah, I can see this, the return on investment side of it and what this produces. I mean, this is a godsend. This is going to tell everything that you need to know about testing, maybe do me out of a job. Oh no.
Hopefully not. No.
Yeah, hope not.
make at least, yes. Make it more efficient, I think, and obviously, if you're doing that, that benefits the customer, because they have to. Well, you already mentioned the ROI. It should be huge when you start using this, because you can have shorter testing cycles, less defects, and maybe you can even start doing more releases a year.
Well, more releases, less strain on the business resources as well, doing their job, and bringing in more automation. You can focus more on automation, less on blanket testing, 3,000 scripts, more focus. Okay, now we're going to automate more, because us testers, mostly now everybody wants you to have all these skills, and one of them nowadays is automation. So it benefits the business immensely to start automating as that much as possible, because then the business just have to verify, right? Just look at this printout. Is that what you want? Yeah. Check. Okay, cool. That's it. Thank you. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I need. So it starts reducing your pull on the business, your strain. It starts bringing in your what's changing, what needs to change. It starts keeping your SI, your service integration partner, in check, because you know what's changing, you know where they need to focus. You can start then making sure that you start getting on top of that, and you can make sure that you're on top of your data that you're going to need to change, and indeed what users that you're going to need to help you potentially write further test scripts. So yeah, wow.
Very good. Yeah.
I'm excited about this. I really am.
Thanks, Brett. Now, that's good. It looks like with the it doesn't look like the polls have been working, unfortunately. So,
I know, I saw that. Yeah, we had polls for you guys to sort of complete. No, they're not working. Yeah, it's best laid plans.
if there are any questions that people want to ask, you can use. I think you should be able to use the Q&A functionality, or you can post them in the chat as well. So if anyone's got any questions that they'd like to ask, now's a good time to do that.
Yeah, please feel free.
Yeah. So one question here is, how can it help get me to the right level of enhancement pack before I go to S4?
Oh, very good question. That one. That's a very good question, because obviously I think we have to be at is it enhancement pack 7? Oh, gosh, there's so many different numbers in SAP now. It's unreal. UI 5, Fury 3, 2s. Oh, it's going stupid. Yeah, you need that first, and that's a good thing. This will definitely help you know when you apply that, or when you're looking to apply that pack. It will tell you exactly where you need to test and make sure you're good to go for your transformation, as it were.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good point. And going on from there, then once you're at the right enhancement pack level, you can really then decide how you're going to move forward to S4.
Yeah, because S4 provide dashboards for like your finance and transferring all that data. But I mean, come on, at the end of the day, do you really want to trust your business on that tool completely? I think not. I think you're still going to want to do some, some testing and make sure that it did transfer correctly, right? I know your reports are supposed to go all the way over as well from ECC to HANA. But again, with table changes, do you have Z reports? Will they transfer? Maybe mission critical reports as well for you directors and things that need to keep on top of your business.
Yeah, you don't want those going wrong.
No.
So another question was, we saw I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but we saw the most at risk analysis. The question really is about how we get to that most at risk. So the way it works is it actually looks at the relationship between the changing object, the object that was changed in the transport, and the transaction or the thing that uses it in production. And with SAP, there's lots of reuse of objects underneath the covers. So the change impact analysis basically works out what we call the depth. So how far away is the changing object from the transaction that uses it? And the one with the least amount of depth, so the one with the least path of resistance, if you like, is the one that would get recommended as most at risk. So the algorithm basically, in a nutshell, that's how it works. It uses this depth calculation. The second thing it uses is the usage, and you saw the usage coming back from production earlier. So that would be a secondary thing. The most important thing is the depth. You can, if you want to, change the way it works a little bit by adding in business critical or business criticality to your transactions, which basically means if you do that, those will get highlighted as most at risk if they are impacted, irrespective of the depth. So if you like, it trumps everything else, that would get highest priority.
And that's your automation test plan right there. That's what you automate, those ones, those babies.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think it's a proven technology. It's been around a long time now, and it's, as I said earlier, it's very quick to implement and very easy to implement as well.
And it's got SAP approval as well.
It has got, yes, SAP approval.
And that's the main thing to keep in mind, I think, with all these things, these tools that come out. They say they work with SAP, but have they got the SAP seal approval? So yeah, it definitely works with SAP. We're behind this product. So there you go. SAP don't do testing really. They do good software. They don't do testing. They tried that. It does work somewhat for Soulman, but yeah, not like it is now. Cool.
Okay, I think we're
Any
just
other-
about up on time, unless there are any other questions. If not, I'd like to thank Brett for your time today. That was very
thank you.
informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And good to hear. And thanks everyone for joining. I think at some point there will be another one where we might look at automation or other aspects of
Yeah.
the IDS and the Tricentis partnership.
And I think if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to me or Richard on LinkedIn or anything, you know, please do, you know, follow us and reach out, because I'm always answering people's questions on there and trying to help out where I can, especially if you've got any data questions, data issues, getting that sorted out before you start making the jump, making sure your data is in a fit state. And then of course, making sure your software with LiveCompare is in a fit state, you know, so all those things, IDS sort of do a lot in testing and test management and helping customers get ready, as it were, at either a short-term or a long-term gig, you know, it's up to you. But yeah, cool. Great stuff. Yay.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.